Okay, so in this first video or in this first class, we are going to begin a thorough review or revision of the 2024 Human Anatomy Test 2. Okay, so we'll begin by looking at the multiple choice questions. I'm sure there are 50 of them. Today, if possible, we are going to consider 20. Okay, today we're going to consider 20 questions, then we call it a day. So let's be very quick in responding. The quicker we respond, the quicker we move. Are we together? We are together, right? Okay, so the first question goes like, how many regions are in the vertebral column? How many regions are in the vertebral column? A is saying 5, B is saying 4, C is saying 3, D is saying 3. D is saying it's supposed to be 8. D is supposed to be 8. What are you going with? How many regions are in the vertebral column? Okay, so basically you are all correct. The vertebral column has 5 regions. Okay, so we have 5 regions. We have 7 cervical vertebrae. We have 12 thoracic vertebrae. We have 5 lumbar vertebrae, which are fused. We also have 5 fused sacral, and we also have 3 fused coccyx. So basically, here our answer is A. We go to question 2. How many vertebrae are in an adult skeleton? 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 A is showing 33, B is showing 30, C is showing 26, D is showing 24. What are we going with here? Adult skeleton. Okay, so all of you are saying 33. So the answer is 26. The adult skeleton has 26 vertebrae. We go to question 3. Question 3 says the vertebral arch is attached to the body. So the key is the vertebral arch is attached to the body of the vertebrae via the okay, so the vertebral arch is attached to the body of the vertebrae via the you have A pedicles, B laminae, C spinous process, D ligaments. Which one are we going with? Question 3. Which one are we going with? Question 3. Which one are we going with on question 3? About the attachment of the vertebral arch to the body of the vertebrae. Any submission? Okay, so someone is just guessing A. Okay, so question 3, the answer is A. Question 3, the answer is A. So just to comment, the pedicles attach the vertebral arch to the body of the vertebrae, while the lamina attaches the vertebral arch to the spinous process, if we put it that way. Okay, so lamina attaches or connects vertebral arch to the spinous process, while the pedicle connects or attaches vertebral arch to the body of the vertebrae. Question 4. What is the key feature? What is the key feature? What is the key feature of the cervical vertebrae? Key feature of the cervical vertebrae. A. Cost of assets. B. Bifid spinous process. C. Long spinous process. C. Kidney shaped vertebral body. What are you going with? Someone is saying B with a question mark at the end. Others, what are we saying? Others, what are we saying? Any other submission? Only one person has submitted B as their line of thought. What do others say? Okay, so we proceed. So the answer to question 4 is B. Okay, the answer to question 4 is B. Why are we saying B? Um, you need to understand that as far as key features of typical vertebrae. When you talk about the cervical vertebrae basically has a short spinous process. It has a short spinous process, and also that spinous process is bifid. So when we say that the spinous process is bifid, what we mean is that the spinous process basically splits into two, okay, at the end, or let me say it splits into two distally. That is what we mean when we say bifid. Okay, that is what we mean when we say bifid or bifid. And then when you talk of the thoracic vertebrae, when you talk of the thoracic vertebrae, basically the thoracic vertebrae is fairly large, okay, and it is heart shaped. Apart from that, it comprises of long spinous processes, which the spinous process is basically pointed, and that spinous process is angled downward. Okay, then you have the lumbar vertebrae. So the lumbar vertebrae is basically considered to be the largest, and not just the largest, but it is also the strongest vertebrae. Okay, and you'll find that each spinous process is more thicker. Okay, the spinous process is thicker and very broad, and it tends to project posteriorly. Okay, are we together up to this far? Are we together? Are we together? We are saying that we are saying that when it comes to key features of the vertebrae, when you talk of the cervical vertebrae comprises of short spinous process, and it is also bifid. And we said that when we say that the spinous process is bifid, what we mean is that that spinous process basically splits into two on the distal aspect. And then we have the thoracic vertebrae, of which we said that the thoracic vertebrae is heart shaped, and it has a long spinous process which is pointed and angled uh, in a downward position. Then we talked about the lumbar vertebrae, of which the lumbar vertebrae is known to be the largest and the strongest, and it has the thickest spinous process, which is broad, and its spinous process projects posteriorly. Hopefully that was clear. Okay, so we go to question number 5. Question 5 says the sacrum, okay, question 5, the sacrum articulates with the following bones except, okay. So in other words, all of the following bones articulate with the sacrum except one. Which of those is among these options? Okay. So which bone here does not articulate with the sacrum? What is your option? A, lumbar, B, coccyx, C, iliac, D, femur. What option are we going with? Okay, Cecilia, someone is saying D. Others, what are we saying? Okay, so basically, this is a very simple question. The answer is D. So the sacrum does not articulate with the femur. So when we talk about the sacrum is basically formed by the fusion of the five sacrovertebrae. And this bone, known as the sacrum, basically has the base. Okay, so the base of the sacrum is the one that articulates superiorly with the fifth lumbar vertebrae, okay, and all its associated intervertebral discs. Then we have the apex. So the apex has to do with the coccyx inferiorly, okay, coccyx inferiorly. Then we have what we can refer to as auricular surfaces. So the auricular surfaces, basically, they are located or they are formed laterally on the sacrum, okay, and you'll find that each of those auricular surfaces tends to articulate with the auricular surface of the hilum, okay. Then we have the anterior and the posterior surfaces of the sacrum, and these surfaces, they are points of attachment to the pelvic ligaments and muscles. Okay, then we go to question number 6. Question 6 says the spinal cord is found in the dash of the vertebrae. The spinal cord is found in the dash of the vertebrae. A. Transverse foramen. B. Intervertebral foramen. C. Vertebral foramen. C. All of the above. What are we going with? Okay, someone is saying can go for D. Okay, so someone is saying C with a question mark at the end. So the answer basically to this question, which is question 6, is C. Someone has gotten it correct. So what we can say is that when you talk about the vertebral foramen basically contains the spinal cord and its roots. Okay, it comprises of spinal meninges. It comprises of venous plexus, etc. Okay, so you need to understand that the vertebral foramen of all the vertebrae form the spinal canal. Okay, are we together? Are we together? All right. So we go to question 7. Question 7 says, which statement is correct? Okay, which statement is correct concerning the seventh cervical vertebrae? Concerning the seventh cervical vertebrae, A, it is a typical cervical vertebrae. B, its transverse foramen does not transmit vertebral arteries. C, it has a bifid spinous process. D, it is also known as atlas. Which one are we going with here? It's funny how one of us is when she gives an answer, she puts a question mark at the end. Others, what are we saying? Someone is saying B. Others, what are we saying? Hmm? Okay, so the answer is B. Okay, the answer is actually B. So now, just to comment on the same with regards to the seventh cervical vertebrae, you need to understand that we have what we call atypical cervical vertebrae and typical cervical vertebrae. So when we talk of atypical cervical vertebrae, these ones include, remember we have seven cervical vertebrae. So the atypical cervical vertebrae include C1, C2, and C7. Okay. Then the typical vertebrae, basically, we have C3 to C6. Okay. And C1 is the one that is known as atlas. It is the one that forms the atlanto-occipital joint, and it lacks the body. Okay. Because the body of C1 actually fuses. Okay. The body of C1 actually fuses onto the body of C2 during development. And so you find that after that fusion, it becomes the dense of C2. Okay, it becomes the dense of C2. So therefore, you'll find that as a result, you discover that there is no intervertebral disc between C1 and C2. And then C2 is also known as the axis. And C2 basically has what we call the dense or odontoid process, and it ends up forming what we call atlantoaxial joint. Okay, so that was question 7. So before we proceed to question number 8, we will just take a 2 minutes break, then we continue.